You remember when everyone was hyped for battle royales? That tense feeling of winning your first game, being the first player amongst 100 in the lobby to come out on top. It was exhilarating, filled with action, and really, really intense. But battle royales have almost been around for like 10 years at this point, which is kind of crazy and a nice reminder of how old I'm getting. But what's interesting is that feeling, that tense, that action, the adrenaline rush doesn't really exist anymore, at least not for me. And I feel like a lot of players probably feel the same way. Battle Royale games have been around for a while, so getting your 956th victory royale in Fortnite or getting another win in Apex doesn't quite feel the same way. We've been through those scenarios again and again and again. That loss and fear of dying isn't necessarily such a big thing anymore. And to top it all off, a lot of battle royales have leaned in the favor of adding respawn systems, easier ways to get back into the fight, and basically making it less worrying to lose a game. And whilst that may help in the fast-paced nature of battle royales today and help keep public lobbies from dying out within 2 minutes of starting, it's a bit of a shame in a way. That adrenaline rush, the fear to die, is no longer there. And I honestly feel like the way battle royales are going, besides some ranked modes like Apex Legends Ranked, which I think is a lot of fun, battle royales nowadays just kind of feel like a glorified arena shooter with extra steps. You have a big map where you have to loot, but you're going to be fighting within seconds. You're going to be just going for as many kills as you can, and once you're dead, you just wait to respawn or click the ready up button again. Like, in a way, they've removed a lot of the friction and downtime in battle royales to make it more fast-paced, hyperactive, and in a way, that does mean that you can get in and have a bit more fun when you don't have as long to commit to a play session. But the sort of overarching effect of that is, well, you hear my voice, effect, is that you kind of are missing out on the adrenaline and the tense moments, and I miss that. I genuinely miss that. I miss those heart-pumping moments that battle royales were once known for. And I think that because we've played so many battle royale games for so many years, that feeling's just gone. There's no risk to dying anymore because you don't really lose anything besides a couple extra minutes of waiting in the queue. And my long-term belief has always been that the solution to get that feeling again lies somewhere deeply in the extraction shooter genre. And unfortunately, extraction shooters have just never really hit the mark. There's been a lot that have reached the market. Some have been way too extreme. Things like Arena Breakout, Escape from Tarkov. You die in those games and it can feel horrible. It can feel frustrating, especially when the person that killed you might be hiding in a bush 200 meters away with aimbot. You know, that thing kind of makes the whole experience a bit of a headache. As opposed to it being a adrenaline-filled moment, it's a frustrating moment that feels more akin to banging your head against a wall as opposed to having your heart banging in your chest. You know, it doesn't quite hit the same marks that winning a Battle Royale game did all those years ago. But then on the flip side, you have some dev studios realizing that the barrier to entry for an extraction shooter, the thing that's stopping it blowing up and becoming the #1 game in the world, is that it is too frustrating and too difficult to lose all your gear. So they go the other way and release a game that isn't really that damaging if you die. DMZ, whilst fun, had no real risk and reward, and you didn't really build up a nice inventory of stuff like you could in other extraction games. And then you had other strange extraction shooter games that hit the market that basically were dead on arrival, because the whole point of an extraction shooter is to have a lot of risk and a lot of reward, and balancing that seems to be one of the most difficult things for developers to do. You either go too far, it's too realistic, the game is too difficult, or it's just not rewarding enough and there's not enough of a risk there, so the adrenaline just doesn't exist and it feels like you're just running around doing tasks for no real purpose. But I strongly believe when one developer finds the secret sauce to finally balancing that act between being too dangerous when you die and not being dangerous enough, we're going to have a huge boom. That will be the moment, the PUBG moment of Battle Royales, but for extraction shooters will come. And when it does, it's going to revitalize the competitive shooter market. The shooter space is going to feel fresh again. And I've been waiting so long for that moment to hit. And there have been countless extraction shooters out the door at this point, and none of them have quite made it yet. But I do strongly feel like when it happens, we're going to see something pretty awesome. And we'll get that feeling again, that adrenaline rush. So what games out there could potentially hit that mark? The games that I'm currently hoping for that are just around the corner. Let's talk about their chances to really make it big. First being PUBG's new game, Project Black Budget, which is an extraction shooter. And, well, I guess they hit gold with PUBG. Maybe they could do the same with Project Black Budget. They were the game that sort of brought Battle Royale into the limelight, that spawned hundreds of Battle Royale clones out there. It was PUBG that popularized it. There were games before it, of course. We had the Armor Battle Royale mod, we had H1Z1BR, but PUBG was the one that truly changed the genre and brought it into the limelight. Now, Project Black Budget is, I guess, their attempt to do the same with extraction shooters. They realize as a dev studio that no one has quite brought extraction shooters to the masses. There is no Fortnite of extraction shooters yet, and I think that maybe their hope is with this game. There's been some leaked images online now, with there being a current playtest under the works, and it's hard to really extract what's going on with the game and whether it's going to be successful or not with just a few texts and screenshots floating around the internet. I don't know if Project Black Budget will be the one to make extraction shooters actually mainstream, but I'm happy to see them try. The more devs that try it, the more future devs can look at that and see what works and what doesn't. And I think it's going to take a little bit of time before an extraction shooter really does make it big. Project Black Budget from the screenshots seems very much like PUBG in terms of the game world, the graphics, that kind of thing, and I can quite imagine the gunplay will feel very similar as well. I genuinely don't mind sort of slower shooters if they're done right. And I think that the actual game mechanics themselves don't matter as much as the core economy system for the extraction shooter. And I think that's where things need to be balanced well. What makes an extraction shooter fun, in my eyes, is not necessarily how the guns feel or the movement or anything like that. And whilst that is important, it's down to the way the mechanics of extracting and getting loot and reward actually works. I think there's some value in getting hold of specific guns and equipment and taking that back with you and holding it and owning it and taking that again in future runs and running the risk of losing it if you die. To me, that single element is what makes extraction shooters so valuable. And what I don't quite understand is a lot of extraction shooters either go to current routes. They either take the route of you basically go around and just loot junk and hope you get lucky that you can find a rare item and sell it. But really, that rare item is like a DVD drive or a Bitcoin or something weird like that you just go back to the menu and sell it and build up a stack of cash. And yes, you can make progress as you go through the game with that route, but there aren't any like super rare items such as like rare guns or rare equipment that you find after hundreds of runs. And once you've got it, it feels really amazing because you just slowly build up currency over time and then buy what you want to. And I think that reduces the element of fun. I want there to be an extraction game where you may get lucky to find a really rare item, the same way playing a World of Warcraft raid feels, where you can get lucky and get an extremely rare item after running it so many times. That thrill is what makes it so fun to keep going again and again. Another route that I see extraction shooters take is they'll often have a system where the more runs you do, you can sort of upgrade your abilities and gear set, and you don't really necessarily lose anything. And I think that that is a bit of a boring approach as well. If you just go into a run and sort of just level up your gear from the stuff you get out of it, then you just go back in with that same gear and there's no risk of loss. And I think there needs to be a risk of loss to make it fun. So I'm kind of keeping my eyes on a few different games out there. Arc Raiders, I've played Arc Raiders, and whilst the game does offer some interesting game mechanics, I think it does also kind of fall into that same sort of archetype of where you sort of just build up your gear over time by just constantly running and running. And there's not really like a defined rarity system when it comes to finding really rare gear or trying hard to get specific high value stuff. Now, that could change when the game releases, but didn't quite scratch the itch I was hoping for. We've also got Marathon, which supposedly is going to release later this year as well, from the same developers that made Halo back in the day. Now, they also made Destiny, so they know how to do loot and looter shooters right, and I think that expertise could lend itself well in an extraction shooter. I'm really hoping that they get it right when it comes to economy, rare items and all that stuff, and I'm holding out for that to be a decent game. I also think going the route of being a bit more sort of free-flowing when it comes to movement, gunplay, and potential abilities could be a more mainstream approach to get more eyes on the extraction genre, as opposed to always going hyper-realistic combat and taking, real serious injuries, and if you get shot, you have to walk really slowly. It's like, that's a cool game mechanic, but I think for a lot of players, it will become tedious, and I think that's one of the reasons why extraction shooters haven't hit the mainstream yet, because the ones that get the loot economy right, like Escape from Tarkov, are a little bit too hyper-realistic in terms of what it's like to actually play day by day. So I'm just kind of putting my thoughts out there, hoping for a good extraction shooter to come. Maybe this will be the year. I don't know, but when it does happen, I think it will change the future of shooter games forever.